All right, hello everyone. If you're watching this video, there's a good chance you were not able to make it to my lecture of this presentation in our Zoom class. Here's what you missed. Before we start reading our two texts for this unit, we do need to lay down a little bit of foundation, a little bit of historical understanding. We'll be talking about the atomic bomb. Specifically, we're going to be focusing on the bombing of Hiroshima, which was the first drop. A day later, another bomb would be dropped on Nagasaki. But our text by John Hersey, Hiroshima, as it's titled, it's going to focus on the first. And so let's go ahead and let's talk about this. So I've actually been to Hiroshima before. I was really excited. I have a friend that lives in Japan, so we went over there to visit her, and of course, we saw the sights that we could for our 2-week vacation. And so this is looking out the window of our hotel, and you can see that it's beautiful. I mean, it's a very green, lush city. I mean, considering how densely populated it is, there's I really enjoyed my time there. I had a really good time. This is looking out, and what's really important to understand is that this city kind of works like a delta. Okay, and if you guys remember from geography, deltas, it's when we have rivers flowing into the ocean, and so they tend to, taper off in different directions as they get closer to the water. So this is where the bomb was dropped. We're looking right at ground zero, which would have been in this area right here. Okay, we see the A-bomb dome, which we'll talk about later. This is where it happened. You can see over here, there's the War and Peace Memorial Museum. When we went to visit, it was under construction, so we couldn't get into this building. But they had an amazing exhibit right here, which I'll talk more about later. Okay. All right, and so one of my favorite things about Japan, honestly, I'm a big foodie. Okay, I'm really food motivated. You can see this is the restaurant that they had inside of our hotel, and so you can still see the A-bomb dome and that last picture I showed you in the background. But I really love Japanese food, and I had one of my best meals here on my birthday, so I just had to talk about the food a little bit. This is called okonomiyaki. And so okonomiyaki is a food that you can get in different styles depending on what region you're in. This is Hiroshima style okonomiyaki, which is kind of different from, I think the Osaka brand, which doesn't use noodles. It's more of like a potato pancake drizzled with sauce, and, they're big, delicious chunks of seafood in here, and it's covered in green onions, and I think this is one of the best meals I've ever had in my lifetime. And of course, they had some other really delicious meals there. I've had natto before, which I love, and it gets a bad rap because its smell really does betray the flavor. And you know what, its texture is kind of bad too, but if you can get past those two things, it's a pretty good meal. It's a good way to start your morning. That's what they would usually have for breakfast. Yeah, this is a typical Japanese breakfast, by the way. It's pretty good. This is a picture on my birthday, actually. I'm not the only person in this room to have a birthday. It was really an amazing experience. We were walking around, and we were going down this outside mall, and there were a bunch of shops all over the place, and we looked to our left, and we noticed that there's this optometry. Okay, they sell glasses. They sell like prescription glasses, and music was thumping from there. And so, my husband's a musician. We really appreciate live music, and so we couldn't help it. We stumbled in there, and we took a seat, and, it was really nice. These people here dressed in white, I believe they're the owners of the establishment. Okay, you can tell the party was being thrown for them. And this woman right here, she was having a birthday. All right. Also, you can't see him really well, but the drummer was having a birthday too. And so it got to the point of the night where, you know, everyone was going to sing happy birthday. And I lean over to the girl sitting next to me and I'm like, oh, watashi mo, it's my birthday too. And she's like, what? And she throws me on the stage. It was so embarrassing. I was so, because I didn't want to be in the middle of it. But yeah, this whole place, they sing me happy birthday. So, you know, I have good memories there. I definitely would like to go again. All right, and so guys, it's not all going to be vacation videos, but I mean, I just want to show you, you know, what's there today. You know, before we start looking at, you know, what happened historically. Here's Mr. Jones. Okay, they have a wonderful art museum. We were able to check it out. This is outside of the art museum. You can see it's pretty modern looking. Okay, this is the museum, and I had to take a picture of this and show you guys because it was the most peculiar thing. You know, this is like the court grounds of the museum, and, you know, there are a couple of exhibitions in here, a couple of exhibitions over here. But I had to snap this picture because these gentlemen down here that you see sitting in the grass, they're working. I think they're hired by the museum. And I don't know if they have a rule against loud, annoying lawnmowers or what, but they're, with scissors, they're individually cutting the grass. They're cutting the grass with scissors by hand, and that's just what they were doing. That's just how they do it. It was a really bizarre thing, really bizarre. All right, and so this picture right here. Okay, I took this, and it was June when we visited, so it was their rainy season, so there was a lot of rain, and you know, school is still in session. They have year-round school sessions, and you know, many students were on field trips, and so that's with these students. They were on field trips, and so you know, I snapped a picture of them with the ruins of the bombing in the background, and this is called the A-bomb dome, the A-bomb dome, and it was a works facility, and the bomb dropped directly here. And so because this building was standing right underneath it, the force of the bomb didn't push it over. Okay, instead it kind of packed it down. And so that's why you see that these walls are still standing, because back when the bomb was originally dropped, there was nothing around. It was just completely flat. So, you know, after they had to decide to rebuild their city, and, you know, they opted to just tear everything down, destroy everything that was injured in the blast, and start from the ground up. But they did choose, after a long debate, to keep this building, to keep the structure here as a reminder of what happened. So this was the bomber that dropped the atomic weapon on Hiroshima in 1945. All right, these are the pilots. Okay, so we have Paul Tibbets Jr., who's in the center here. He was the one who flew the plane. And this is the ground crew. And yeah, this is it was called the Enola Gay. That was the name of the plane. That's the name they gave it. All right, and so the name of the bomb itself that the Enola Gay, you know, dropped, the first one that would hit Hiroshima was called Little Boy. And I think I'll show you a picture later of the two bombs side by side. But the Little Boy was the smaller of the two bombs, but it did pack quite a blast. And the Fat Man, which looked a little bigger, didn't, you know, cause as many casualties, but you know, it was a bigger looking bomb. But that didn't really matter. It was still devastating. So this is what you would see after an atomic bomb exploded. This is all water vapor and smoke and ruins and ash. And in the text we'll read, you know, they'll describe what this event was like to stand underneath it. So it's very powerful. And this is the city itself. And so looking at this map, okay, here's the before, here's the after picture. You know, here's ground zero right here. Okay, this is where my hotel was. This is where I took that picture. This right here is a very old castle. Okay, it's like a feudal era castle. And there were soldiers stationed here, by the way, that didn't survive. But yeah, this was a city. This was a city. That's important to note. This is a busy, populated city. And this is what happened. This was all that was left. Okay, you can kind of see the moat, the ring of water, outside around the castle. And surprisingly, with the bombing, they were attempting to take out these bridges, but the bridges remained standing. So that just kind of shows you how powerful those were to withstand the attack of an atomic bomb. All right, and so this was really bizarre. This is a picture that I took, and we were just walking down this, normal-looking alleyway. There was nothing spectacular about it, and we saw this plaque, and we read it, and we learned that this was the Hypo Center. And so this is the inscription. I'm not going to bother reading that for you, but it was really bizarre to stand right here at this point and just kind of, you couldn't help it but, look up at the sky and just imagine what it would have been like, standing there back in 1945. So, yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, that's right there. That's where that picture is. All right. Here's some other pictures I took. And guys, I promise this isn't just going to be my vacation photos. But this is Hiroshima Castle, and so it was built originally in 1592. But of course, in the atomic bombing, it was collapsed, and so they rebuilt it in 1958. And you can go visit it today. It's pretty cool. There's a shrine that's on the grounds. Okay, it was a pretty neat experience. People were out there walking their dogs, and it was pretty fun. All right, so this is the A-bomb dome. This is what we refer to it now, but originally it was called the Chamber of Industry and Commerce building. And so it was in this building. You had a lot of factory workers, it was because it was, like I said earlier, because it was directly underneath the bomb, which did explode in midair. It didn't hit the ground first and then explode. It exploded in midair. Because it did that, it was right on top of this. It managed to stay upright despite the force of the weapon. Okay, and this is what it looks like today, up close. You can see it. You can see that there are parts of the structure that they had to reinforce in order to keep it standing. But you can walk to it today. You can't get behind this fence area, of course, but it's very somber. And here is a picture of the second bomb that was dropped in Nagasaki. And this picture was taken from quite far away. But just like with the Hiroshima bombing, this is another bomb that detonated above the ground and showered everything below it. Okay. And so here's some more pictures of the devastation of Nagasaki. Really, you only see these factory buildings and these Western-style buildings still standing because a lot of the structures in the city, just like Hiroshima, were built with wood. And so the wood didn't do so well. Okay. Now, I do need to give you guys a warning, with a few of these slides that are coming up. They're gruesome and they're upsetting. But I need to show you what happened. Okay, that's part of learning from history. We need to understand what happened. We need to see what was to be seen and, do our best moving forward to not repeat history in ways that can be avoided. So in this first picture, this is outside of Hiroshima. This is after the bombing. These children were lucky. Okay. I don't know where their parents are. Okay, I don't know what their individual situations are. We see that they're keeping their hands warm from the cold, and these children were lucky to be here. These children were not so lucky. Okay, this was taken hours after the blast of Hiroshima, and there were several bodies that, that were charred and killed immediately. Some not immediately. All right, here's a picture of some injuries. And so the way that atomic weaponry works, it showers everyone in this bright, intense light, and this light burns. It's, it's radiation. And so the body reacts to radiation as if it were burned. And you can see that, this woman was wearing a dress of some sort, and it was printed. Okay, it was printed in different colors. And you can see the nature of her burns differed. They changed depending on how the light, hit each color. Because if you remember from your science class, the way that light works and energy travels through light, it travels through, radio waves. And, those darker, those blacks, those dark blues, those deep purples, those kinds of colors retain energy. Whereas lighter colors like white and yellow don't hold on to energy as much. In fact, when light hits it, the light bounces off of it, and so it tends to stay cooler. And you can see that with the radiation from this bomb, as the light hit this woman's back, the darker patterns in her skin the darker patterns in her clothes branded her skin, because that darker color just retained more energy. So that's really gruesome, but that's what we're looking at right here. Okay, people's skin was literally imprinted by the powerful heat rays of this blast. Whew. All right, here we see some survivors, a mother and a child. This picture I took from inside of the museum. It's a watch that stopped at exactly the moment that the bomb went off. Okay. At 8:15 in the morning. Okay. Those who were a little closer to the blast, would be completely incinerated. But as I said earlier, the light blast from these bombs was so intense and so powerful that it seemed to have bleached everything that it touched. And in fact, there were cases where you could see the shadows of victims on the ground because the light from the bomb would bleach everything that the body had shielded. And so, you would see these ghostly figures in the cement. You would see these figures of people and objects like ladders, where they stood before the blast. And it was quite eerie. Okay. These next illustrations, I probably should have warned you, are going to be graphic as well. These were drawn by survivors. And this survivor right here describes what they saw. She says she held her arms out. Okay. Matsumuru Kazuko. That sounds like a man's name, so it may have been a man. She held her arms out in front to keep the burned, hanging skin off the ground. To prevent their red, exposed flesh from sticking, people thrust their arms in front of them like ghosts. Their skin, like the thin skin of potato, hung from the fingernails where it was still attached. Okay, and so this was one way that somebody could be severely injured by this blast. And again, we see that ghost-like figure with this next illustration, which is just absolutely gruesome. If this is making your stomach churn, that's a natural reaction to this. It's upsetting to me too. But I mean, we see here with this illustration that was donated to the Hiroshima Peace Museum. They're described their clothes ripped to shreds, their skin hanging down. On the riverbank, I saw figures that seemed to be from another world, ghost-like. Their hair falling over their faces, their clothes ripped to shreds, their skin hanging. A cluster of these injured persons was moving wordlessly toward the outskirts. Okay, and we're going to read about this. Okay, this is going to be in our book. We're going to, have this imagery explained to us through the author's words. Okay, and there's one last one. Okay, this was by Onegi Akira. People wanting water gathered around the cisterns. Okay, these are collections of water. I found them just as they were when they drank and died. My heart aches as I apply the red color. Okay, and I do believe that's what it says down here. And so we can see, I think that A-bomb dome might be illustrated right here. I'm not sure. But yeah, we see these large collections of water and victims just, going there to die, essentially. Because of the extent of their injuries. So even if you managed to survive the bombing without a scratch, there's a good chance that you would be subjected to a lifetime of illness because of the radiation sickness. And so we're going to discuss here a few of those life-altering symptoms that people would have suffered with. Okay, so understand that there are two types of radiation sickness. Okay, the less painful one is caused by non-ionizing radiation, and this happens, when exposed to light or radio waves or microwaves or radar, and these don't usually cause tissue damage to the body. However, in the perspectives we'll be reading about, they suffered from ionizing radiation, which causes immediate effects on human tissue. Okay, this can be caused by X-rays, gamma rays, particle bombardment. You're going to learn more about the uses of nuclear science in your other classes. But I do want to remind you guys that we are looking more at the human element here, specifically about those first few victims who were negatively impacted by this bombing. We're not going to talk about that too much in this class, but you will be discussing this with your other teachers. So, there are some uses for it. It's used for industrial manufacturing purposes, also weapons and weapons development, which, well, we've already seen. So, here are some symptoms of ionizing radiation sickness. It might cause weakness, fatigue, fainting, confusion, bleeding from the nose, mouth, gums, and rectum, bruising, skin burns, open sores on the skin, shedding of skin, dehydration, diarrhea, bloody stool, fever, hair loss, inflammation of exposed areas, so inflammation of the skin showing redness, tenderness, swelling, and bleeding, nausea and vomiting, vomiting of blood, ulcers in the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, or the intestines, and also cancer. And some of these, wouldn't go into effect until much after the exposure. Okay, this is a video. I'm not going to play it because it's 10 minutes long, and I don't want to show a video on my YouTube video. Don't want to take it down. But please watch this on your own time. This was published by the Turkish Public Broadcasting Company way back in 2016. And it was around that time that Obama took a trip to Hiroshima around the anniversary of the bombing. And there's a big debate because Japan, they've been hoping to eliminate this weapon from the use of any national power. But anyways, it's an interesting video. You guys should watch it. Okay, there is one experience I want to focus on right now with Sadako Sasaki. Okay, this is a little girl that survived the bombing, only to end up suffering seriously from radiation sickness. All right, and so visitors to the Peace Memorial Park see brightly colored paper cranes everywhere. These paper cranes, they're originally from the Japanese tradition of origami, or paper folding, and this was a practice that this girl, Sadako Sasaki, really enjoyed. She really enjoyed making paper cranes. She really enjoyed origami. But unfortunately, 10 years after the atomic bombing, she would die due to leukemia. All right. Sadako was only 2 years old when she was exposed to the A-bomb. She had no apparent injuries and grew into a strong and healthy young girl. However, 9 years later, in the fall, when she was in the 6th grade of elementary school in 1954, she suddenly developed signs of an illness. In February the following year, she was diagnosed with leukemia and was admitted to the Hiroshima Red Cross Hospital. Believing that folding paper cranes would help her recover, she kept folding them to the end, but on October 25th, 1955, after an 8-month struggle with the disease, she passed away. Sadako's death triggered a campaign to build a monument to pray for world peace and the peaceful repose of the many children killed by the atomic bomb. The Children's Peace Monument that stands in Peace Park was built with funds donated from all over Japan. Later, the story spread to the world, and now approximately 10 million cranes are offered each year before the Children's Peace Monument, which I've been to before, and here's a picture of it. So this monument was dedicated mostly to Sasaki, to the little girl. And, I mean, you can see her cranes are everywhere. There are these booths in here, and they're just packed with cranes, one after another. It's just incredible. And this was her monument, and also a monument to other children who were negatively affected by the A-bomb. But this is a more general children's monument. This monument was to all children that died in the blast. And it's pretty interesting. It has a recorded message, and if you click one of these buttons, it'll talk to you in whatever language you're most comfortable, whatever you're most fluent. Okay. Here are some other pictures around the Peace Memorial Park. Okay, and so you can see they were working on earthquake proofing the museum over here, so that was blocked off to us. But this right here, okay, inside of this there's an eternal flame, and that flame will not go out until all atomic weapons are eliminated. So there's no longer a threat to nuclear war. So it's probably going to be some time before this goes out. Hopefully it goes out sooner rather than later. And if you see, they lined it up perfectly. So as you look at the flame, you can see the A-bomb dome in the very background there. This was really cool. This was it looked like another class that was on a field trip. And what they're doing here is, this is a large chime. And so I just kind of took a picture of this and watched as this class pulled this huge, heavy log. They pulled it back, and then they let go, and the log hit the chime. And it was a really lovely sound. It was really neat. It was fun to watch. But anyways, so from the novel that we'll be reading in this class, we're going to focus on these 6 survivors here. Kiyoshi Tanimoto, Mrs. Hatsuyo Nakamura, Masakazu Fuji, Father Wilhelm Kleisenorg, Dr. Terufumi Sasaki, and Toshiko Sasaki. And it's going to be these 6 experiences that you'll familiarize with, and you are going to highlight the experience of one of these of your choosing. So as we read, think about which perspective you want to bring attention to, and make sure to keep careful notes. All right, and that's it. If you have any questions for me, you know how to reach me. You know how to send them my way. I would love to answer them as soon as I can. This is a unit that discusses a very heavy topic. It's not going to be the most positive or uplifting, but it is going to be impactful. And hopefully it gets you guys thinking about things a little bit differently. Hopefully it gets you thinking about, how we respond to adversity, and what we can do to help others when times are tough. And I hope you learned something. I hope you guys learned something. All right, well, that's it. I look forward to seeing you guys in class, and take care. Let's go.